It's been a busy 24 hours for the Miami Dolphins, making some roster cuts to the offseason roster and getting most of their draft class signed ahead of this weekend's festivities. We got you covered here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, the author of Touchdown Miami on Substack. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. The Dolphins have been busy. Made some roster cuts yesterday, including a 5-year start, no longer with the team. The Dolphins this morning announcing that they've signed 7 of their 8 players off their rookie draft class. So we're going to be exploring all of these moves here today on the show as we go into the weekend. The Dolphins announced yesterday afternoon, let's start with the roster cuts. This, per the news release from the team, Dolphins announced that they have waived cornerback Ryan Cooper Jr., okay, Bump Cooper, defensive tackle Neil Farrell, and offensive lineman Chasen Hines. The team also released long snapper Blake Ferguson. So Ryan Cooper, Bump Cooper, the corner, was picked up off of waivers throughout the offseason from Seattle. So there's obviously a familiarity with the Mike McDonald scheme. The team getting Jason Marshall in the draft. The team also obviously has a lot of young talent that exists. They need to figure out what they're doing with Jalen Ramsey. That's a storyline that we have exhausted from a lot of angles. We'll not get into it today, but when they finished agreeing to terms with undrafted free agents and finished the draft class, they were in surplus. They had more names than they were allowed to carry on an active roster. Now, that's okay until it's time to show up and report and go through rookie camp and all that kind of stuff. And then you kind of need to, once pen is put to paper and guys are participating, you need to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. So part of the attrition here is spurred on by the influx in UDFAs and rookies as a part of this draft class. So Cooper on the outs. Neil Farrell actually played for Miami last year. He was a 4th-round pick by the Raiders. He played 52 games at LSU with 21 starts. He was picked 126th overall by the Raiders in the 2022 NFL Draft. Played sparingly for Miami, and I will be honest, there was a merciful exhale from me with this maneuver, just because in doing the grading that I did last year, where I watched every snap with every player and graded them to an above, to, or below expectation grading scale on every snap for every player. When Neil Farrell had to play, there was a lot of limitations that I thought showed on tape for a guy who's a bigger body but doesn't necessarily play with the anchor of a bigger body, and there's some leveraging issues and there's mobility challenges when the Dolphins are in even fronts, and now all of a sudden you're not just going to be sat right over top of the center and asked to just hold ground and not move, right? And then even when you're asked to do that, the leveraging stuff, and there's a kind of a lack of length that I thought he showed. This is a really limited player. And when they brought him back this offseason, you understood it was on a futures contract, and you say, okay, like, let's see what the offseason brings for new talent. And the infusion that they've brought has clearly made Farrell be a player that their assessment falls in line with mine, and that it's an expendable player as you're going into kind of the next next phase, and not just, oh, well, we need bodies. Well, you got some bodies now. So let's be honest about who you have, right? And they were with Farrell and part of the transition away. Chasen Hines spent 2 years on the Dolphins practice squad, kind of on and off. He was the 6th round pick by the Patriots in 2022. Also played at LSU, but never really caught on any traction as an NFL player with reps. And if it wasn't going to happen amidst Miami's offensive line situation last year and some of the injuries in 23, in which they had backups play more snaps than the starters in 4 of the 5 spots on the offensive line, it probably is just not going to happen, right? So I think that's the right kind of names that are missing upside as guys that have been in the league since 2022 to transition away from and kind of open spots for guys that it's the mystery box thing. It's a practice squad caliber player, but a mystery box guy could be anything. It could be even be a practice squad caliber player, right? But at least there's the ceiling of the unknown of the mystery box versus players that you have a little bit better of an idea of what they are and what they are. Blake Ferguson, though, was drafted by the Dolphins in the 6th round in 2020. And he had served as the team's long snapper up and through the first month of the season this past year in 2024. Ended up on the non-football injury list and spent the rest of the season not playing with the team. And there's been a lot of speculation about what happened with Blake, and it's documented that he's a type 1 diabetic. And I've heard kind of whispers on all different kinds of ends of the spectrum. And I will not speculate without having formal knowledge. And even if I did, it's not really my place to go into. So what I would say for Blake is I'm appreciative for the time that Blake gave the Dolphins to be a really reliable long snapper. And I wish him well as he moves forward and looks to potentially the next chapter of his football playing career, and then getting whatever the issues were behind the scenes that prevented him from being the Dolphins long snapper last year, hopefully getting them ironed out. But from Miami's perspective, if whatever transpired is a blockade moving forward, they had to juggle long snappers off the practice squad every 3 weeks, elevate them for 3 games, and then, well, we're not going to burn a second active roster spot on a long snapper, so you're out of here. We'll bring the next guy in. It's a recipe for disaster. So if whatever happened with Blake is still kind of lingering, then I think this makes total sense in that you can't really afford to play this song and dance and gamble potentially juggling long snappers throughout the season. So those are the Dolphins' departures. Now there's new blood coming in. 7 names signed from the rookie draft class. We're going to get into those next here on Locked on Dolphins, so make sure you guys stick with us. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K device with no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox's Game Pass Ultimate with the EA Play included, and you're ready to go. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25 and Call of Duty, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. What if any TV in any room, no matter where you go, could be your gaming hub? With the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K devices, it can be. So head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On and get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. It's available on select devices, including the Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, the Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and the Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. The other press release that the Dolphins put out came this morning. I think they posted on social media with the pictures of all the guys with the pen on the paper and the big smile in the stadium in the background behind the team facility and the practice fields. 7 draft picks signed. And I think the timing here is interesting because I think there's some foreshadowing about what this perhaps means for the timeline for said cornerback veteran player that we've been speculating about, right? And we're now, what, three weeks away from June 1st, in which case that timeline happens, but not to put the cart before the horse. Kenneth Grant signed his contract the last 24 hours. Jordan Phillips, the 5th round pick, signed his contract. Jason Marshall and Dante Trader, the other 5th round picks, signed their contracts. Ollie Gordon, the 6th round pick, signed his contract. Quarterback Quinn Ewers and defensive tackle Zeke Biggers all signed their rookie contracts with the team. Of course, Grant drafted 13th overall. Jordan Phillips drafted 143rd overall. Jason Marshall drafted 150th overall. Dante Trader drafted 155th, Ollie Gordon 179th, Quinn Ewers 231st, Zeke Biggers 253rd. The interesting thing about this for me is from a top 51 cap perspective and rookie contracts, the value of rookie contracts is largely locked in place by draft position. So there's a pool of funds that are allocated every year to all of the draft picks. And the first overall pick gets the largest slice of the pie. The second overall pick gets the next largest slice of the pie. And it works all the way down. And there's exponential drops off for value of those contracts early. But then as you get later and into the deeper rounds, it's the difference of a couple $1,000 from like a early 6th round pick to a late 6th round pick across 4 years, right? First round picks, obviously you have the 5th year option. That's a team option that gets exercised or declined after 3 seasons. So Kenneth Grant will play 3 seasons, and then the team will decide, do we want to have a additional year on the back end that's obviously a much higher value because that's how 5th year options work. But Jordan Phillips' contract is not going to crack the top 51 on the Dolphins offseason roster. So what that means is the only player that's been signed out of this block that impacts the Dolphins salary cap right now is Kenneth Grant's. And that's just short, at least the projections from Over the Cap had it at just short of $4 million was the year 1 cap commitment. And that number is bumping off a contract that's about $1 million. So the Dolphins are going to have to invest $3 additional million in cap space right now to accommodate the Kenneth Grant contract, which moves their cap space from, I think the NFLPA had it at 17 and change to about 14 and change right now. Jonah Savaiinaea obviously is the last remaining name, and he's not signed. And we're going to get into him and the one last holdout and why that is in just a minute. But the fact that the Dolphins were willing to go here with at least one of the contracts that impacts their salary cap space amidst this contract standoff and dispute that exists with Jalen Ramsey is kind of the latest clue and affirmation that this team is probably going to wait to move Ramsey after June 1st. Because if they move Jalen Ramsey now, before June 1st, they're going to lose, even if they don't pay another cent of his salary, they're going to lose $12 million in cap space. It's a significant hit that the Dolphins will take. If they wait to move Jalen Ramsey until after, they can obviously split the difference of that, and they could save up to $5 million in cap space this year, but then take like an $18 million cap hit in 2026, which would be equivalent to what they did when they did the post-June 1st cut with Xavier Howard last year, right? They've got a dead cap space of about $60 million this year for money that they paid Howard in years past. So the fact that you're willing to eat $3 million in cap space to get Kenneth Grant to put pen to paper now, with like rookie camp coming up and OTAs and all that kind of stuff, kind of suggests that the timeline for Ramsey is going to be pretty passive for the next couple of weeks. And that after June 1st, they'll probably split the dead cap. And that's how they'll go about doing this, because now the cap's going down to 14 and you still have the Jonah contract to get figured out. And there's reason why that's a little bit more complicated. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But with that one now lingering, if you move Ramsey in the next 3 weeks, you're going to be down to $2 million in cap space or less if you get the Jonah contract figured out. Like, and now you just got to restructure contracts just to stay cap compliant and have an operating budget. Never mind add a Jalen Ramsey replacement in free agency, right? So deferring the $18 million, which is approximately what they would save to move Ramsey in 3 weeks, is presumably based on the timeline of signing these rookie contracts and saying, hey, we're willing to commit more cap space right here and now to get these guys signed. Kind of tells you they're probably thinking in a couple weeks we have reinforcements coming in the way of moving Ramsey off the books where we're not going to lose more assets to get him off the roster. But why hasn't Jonah Savaiinaea signed his contract? We're going to get into that next here on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. Hiring for your small business is challenging. When the clock hits 5 o'clock, your mind doesn't get to shut off just like the lights do at the business. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and find qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job, their new feature, helps you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. It's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. So Jonah Savaiinaea was drafted 37th overall. And the Houston Texans kind of threw a wrench in every second-round pick negotiation yesterday because the Texans yesterday gave out the first fully guaranteed second-round contract in NFL history. The Texans, of course, they traded out of the first round and drafted Jaden Higgins with the 34th overall pick. He went 3 picks before Jonah. And the Texans signed Higgins with a fully guaranteed 4-year, $11.7 million contract. Okay, it's a reasonable. It's obviously it's on a wage scale, so the value of the contract, there's not a lot of wiggle room for like negotiation, right? But the percent of it that's guaranteed is where Houston kind of did the unprecedented thing. So for that to come across the wire yesterday, the Texans signed Jaden Higgins and it was fully guaranteed. First time that's ever been done with the rookie wage scale for a second-round contract. If I'm Ryan Williams, who's with Athletes First and helps rep Jonah, and if I'm Jonah, I'm looking at that and saying, well, he got a fully guaranteed deal and he went 3 picks before me. Why shouldn't I get a fully guaranteed deal? And to put this into perspective, let's go back to just we'll use Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul was drafted not in the 30s, but Patrick Paul was the Dolphins' second-round pick last year. Patrick Paul signed a 4-year, $6.91 million contract last year with Miami as their second-round draft choice and 55th overall. And of that $6.9 million total value across 4 years, 3.75 of it was guaranteed. So it's close to 50%. No, it's a little more than 50%. So you're now looking at, well, what about, like year 3 and year 4 of our contract? We would like those years to be guaranteed as well. So I don't think there's anything like it's not like value of the contract. It's more the guarantees and how many years of this contract is going to be guaranteed that I am sure, maybe Athletes First and Ryan Williams and Jonah, if they're ready to conduct business as business has typically been conducted. And then at the last minute, Houston, who picked 3 picks ahead of you, gives a player a fully guaranteed second-year contract. You're going to say, well, hold on, let's zoom out here. And let's ask why we shouldn't get a fully guaranteed contract. And if I'm the Dolphins, I'm probably pointing to, well, the Texans didn't pick in the first round. They traded out with the Giants. That was their first pick. Their first pick, it's a fully guaranteed contract. You were not our first pick. That was Kenneth Grant. He already signed. It's fully guaranteed because all first round contracts are fully guaranteed. So it just kind of creates this awkward, brand new precedent that's been set, and it was set yesterday. So I'm not overly surprised to find out that the Dolphins signed 7 out of 8 rookies out of their draft class, and the one that they didn't sign was the guy who went 3 picks after, the guy who just got the first fully guaranteed second-round contract ever. So The fact that the Dolphins are kind of checking the boxes, getting this thing aligned, they got their whole class with the exception of Jonah under contract. I have to imagine, and with the conviction that the Dolphins apparently have based off how they talked to Jonah on the phone on draft night, how Stephen Ross talked to Jonah on the phone on draft night with the conviction that they had, and they gave up the extra picks. If you believe in him like that, in the grand scheme of things, it's a couple $1 million guaranteed across probably 2 years on the back end of the deal is what you're looking at as kind of the point of conflict. It really is pennies in the grand scheme of NFL operating budgets. And that's why rookie contracts, they're so attractive to teams, right? Because you're talking a few $1 million where sometimes a vet comes in and gets a few $1 million for 1 year. Well, you get that across 4 years. So I would be surprised if he got a fully guaranteed contract, but then on the other hand, I also wouldn't be surprised because I think Athletes First has some good ammunition with what Jaden Higgins got just 4 picks ahead, and knowing how much the Dolphins apparently feel convicted in Jonah. And there's going to want to be an urgency to get that one handled, given you got the rest of the class handled, and you're trying to get Jonah in there and start grooming him now for a starting spot, and putting the contract discussion and negotiation behind him is an attractive outlook from my perspective. So we'll see how long it takes for the details of how much guaranteed the Jonah Savaiinaea contract requires, but 7 out of 8 in the boat. The Dolphins also trimming the roster down to get ready to be compliant with all these guys under contract. That is going to do it for us here today on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys as always for checking on the show. Make it a great rest of your day. I'm out of here. Go Fins.